Renae's turn. Renaye?
Okay, so welcome everybody here today that could make it. And if somebody's watching this after the fact, hopefully you can get a lot of information from us today. If you have any questions, we are available to answer them. You can email our website, or the first day of painting, we will all try to do a kickoff meeting the morning of the first day. So if you weren't able to make this meeting and you want to come and discuss anything with us, that'll be great on the first day. Today we're going to just kind of walk through hopefully the whole process and answer a lot of questions that you might have. And at the end, we'll have a roundtable question and answer, and you can ask questions then, and we'll try to answer them. We're going to talk about ordering the supplies, the things that you will need, your paints, brushes, those kind of things. We're going to talk a little bit today about transferring images onto the box itself. There's different ways of doing it, and we have a couple artists here who've done it different ways, so they'll present that. We're also going to talk about supplies to bring to the site itself. We aren't going to be located near a lot of restaurants and everything, so it'll be a little bit different for us this time. Oh, excuse me. Also, we're going to discuss how to budget your time to complete your whole project and get everything done. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is ordering the paints and brushes, and that's my piece. So first of all, we have had discussions with people who have done these projects before, and they have recommendations for the paint to be used on these utility boxes that will stand up outside for a good long period of time and maybe not fade as much. So the paints that they have recommended, if you're going to be using like a lot of paint, like outdoor paint, they have recommended Behr, B-E-H-R exterior paints, but that can only be found, I believe, at Home Depot. So if you want to use a different kind of paint, we've done a little bit of research on that, and Valspar is another paint that could be used. If you have a paint that you think is kind of the same quality as Behr or Valspar, please let us know, and we'll kind of see if that might be a possibility to use. So that's for like big portions. Thea and I have used it like for background. We've done blue and greens. So we did top half blue and the bottom half green before we started putting things on. I know Jennifer had a big yellow box, so she needed to get like the whole thing painted before she could start her images. So, and I think same with Lori, yeah, and Janice, and yeah. So the thing is, like for big areas, that's a good kind of paint to use. Then for the images, the approved is golden acrylics. Golden makes a really good quality. It doesn't fade. It can be pricier, but I think if you purchase a certain amount of it, you can ask us questions about how much you think you need to get for these boxes. Those are the paints that are approved, and we have a list of the ones that don't fade as fast. So, like if you can pick something from that, I know sometimes you have a favorite paint that you just got to get in there somewhere, but just keep in mind that it might fade a little faster than the other ones. Also, there's a extender that you can use because we're going to be covering big portions. And Thea and I found that this came in really handy. It's GAC. It's like a GAC 200, it's called, and it's an extender medium. So if you use that, you can actually get your paint to go a little or a lot farther. And then we are lucky to have our boxes primed. So this process, sometimes in cities, you might have to prime your own box, but in the city of Concord, they have made arrangements to actually have the boxes all primed with a base coat on it. So we're really lucky to have that. You might just have to like wipe it down, dust it off, and just start painting. So, and then also at the end, when everything's done and we've gotten approval from the city, and they will come around and look. I think they're going to be looking at us all the time because they're right there. So they'll be able to see what we're doing as we go along. And at the end, they'll do like an approval. And after that, we put an isolation coat on it and a varnish. So Concord Art Association has agreed to pay for that so that we can have it on location, and we can have it available for you. And, you can talk to us about how to, there's like a solvent involved with the varnish, but the isolation coat is one thing that goes on fairly easy. Then you have to wait probably like 24 hours for that to dry before you put the varnish on. So just kind of keep that in mind, that you might have to show up days like after you're completely done painting to put these coats on. But we'll talk about that more as we go along too. And there will be like painting schedules when we find out when our days are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did I leave anything out? My friends in the audience that have done this before?
Where can people find that list of paints? Did they need to go to the Golden website, or do we have that? I think I actually might have it.
We do have a list. Go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, the list will be coming out to you this next week.
Okay.
And I'm putting comments in chat if you want to take a look at that from time to time, just amplifying and explaining. Renaye, you might also want to talk about the anti-graffiti coating.
Oh, yes. After all of this is done, the city will actually put on for us an anti-graffiti coating. And we have found that this has been really a good thing, because people do like to add to our artwork. They think we haven't done enough sometimes, and they might add to it as we're going along, or they might add to it after. But the anti-graffiti code is a really good thing, because the city has a team, and they can we use liquid text? No. Okay, so they have a team that will go out and clean this up within 48 hours if you contact them. During the pandemic, they kind of ran low on staff, but now they are fully staffed, and you can call an anti-graffiti line and they go out and clean it up. They really messed up some of our boxes over the past couple of years, but the city's also been able to clean up pretty much most of that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there was a question about Liquitex acrylic paint. Can you use Liquitex? That is not an agreed upon paint. So unfortunately, it's not an agreed upon paint. It doesn't hold up as good as the Golden. And I believe in our contract with the city, we've actually stated what paints we will use. So unfortunately, you're going to have to purchase some of these paints. Again, the extender comes in really helpful. And if you don't already have these paints, I would suggest just getting the basics, like a red, a blue, a yellow, or whatever. If you've got something that's like really your favorite and you find something on the list, maybe go for a tube of that. We have not had to buy really huge tubes. Thea and I went through and purchased, I think, 2-ounce tubes, the smaller tubes. You start thinking about these utility boxes and you think you've got like a whole wall to paint, but actually it's not as big as you think. So go ahead.
On that also.
So, because I did a little research, because there is a list that in the original email with the paints that are approved, the golden. So I did a little research like on Amazon, and you can get the golden in like 8 fluid ounces, which is a big jar. So you're saying you don't necessarily need to use those big jars. You can actually use tubes of paint.
Yeah, we've used the tubes. So yeah. And I understand why you were looking like that, because when we first started out too, it's like, oh my gosh, we've got to cover this whole thing. And actually it starts coming out, like just 4 good sized paintings. So so your smaller tubes, I think, will extend.
I want to kind of note in that we bought a bigger tube of white. So that's the only paint that we bought, a bigger tube, because with blending and everything and highlighting, we use the larger white, I'm sorry.
Or if you're going to have a dominant color in your
Correct.
painting, then you
Correct.
would get a larger one of those. Yeah, like
Correct.
ultramarine blue or something for sky. Yeah.
And the bare paint comes in quarts.
Quart size.
Quart size. So if you want to use if you want to do a base color, I would recommend just getting a quart of that, because you may end up having to put more than one coat on, even though they are primed. Like for example, with our yellow, that was fun. It was bare paint and we had to do it a couple of times because, as you know, yellow is it's sheer anyways. So yeah, whatever.
For
I'm sorry,
our
go ahead.
last utility box, I bought 2 quarts of paint, 1 blue and 1 green. And that was plenty for covering the whole background of the utility box.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Jennifer, would you suggest, if you were going to do yellow as a background, would you suggest painting it white first? Would you suggest a white coat first and then a yellow maybe, or no?
You could, yeah, that would probably make it so that you would only have to use 1 coat, but I mean, you're still using 2 coats.
Okay.
So you might as well just use the yellow.
Okay.
I mean, it depends on what color the
box
primer is. If it's gray,
Mm-hmm.
is the primer gray, or is that like army
Kind
green
of a
color?
greenish gray.
Yeah.
Kind of like,
The pale gray.
yeah, it's kind of prison gray.
with a green
Yeah.
Bland.
So, I mean, like I said, if you're gonna have to do a coat of white, you might as well just use the quart, because the quart will cover the whole thing in 2 coats, as far as I remember.
Sounds good.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Okay, so moving on from and brushes, I think everybody kind of has their own choices of brushes. We kind of brought our own that we had. When we start getting to the varnishes, I would suggest a throwaway brush of some kind. Varnish is kind of really hard unless you varnish a lot and have good brushes for that you're familiar with. That's fine. But for this, I think Thea and I both times we just got like throwaway brushes to we just got throwaway brushes to throw away at the end because it's just a sticky mess. I just got a question where to shop for these supplies. I think there's some rollers. Okay, there's some places that you can shop like Blick's locally, but that's still Oakland, Berkeley, San Francisco. You can do this online. Blick's has an online that's where I always shop. Michael's has a supply. I don't know if you can always guarantee that you'll get what you want at Michael's, but Michael's is another place that you can shop. And there are some other places probably that you can shop too.
Online,
I think the dollar store might have some art supplies that are throwaway too.
Oh, the throwaway
The
brush.
Dollar Tree, yeah, brushes and stuff. I think I was in there yesterday. I noticed that.
Also, there was a question about rollers. Can you use rollers? And Thea and I did use rollers, I think on our first box to get like a small, and again, it was like a throwaway roller for paint, just to get on the big surfaces.
The little
So
ones.
that is an idea. A little one?
The little, yeah, we use the ones.
yeah,
for
just use
smooth.
you want to probably get a mhm. Yeah, you want to get like an angle brush to cut in the corners where you can't get the roller, and then use the roller. It makes it so much easier when you're doing the whole box like a base color.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then also I wanted to say that Jerry's Artorama online, they also have really good deals sometimes better than Blick actually, and I found that they're they ship stuff much more quickly than Blick as well.
I agree with that.
So
Yeah.
just so you know, if you want to get things sent to you, if you can't get to the store.
And what was that website again, Jennifer?
It's called Jerry's Artorama. JERRY' Artorama. And then there's another site. It's such a weird name. It's called Buck a Brush. And you can get like 50 brushes for nothing. And they do, and they're not the best brushes, but sometimes you get like a really nice brush in there. But this, it's worth a try going on their site and seeing the different things that they have to offer, because they do have deeply discounted brushes. And then also I would just go to Lowe's, because like for the bigger brushes, there's no point in buying a really nice acrylic brush for, doing this if you're not going to, unless you want to use it again. But I mean, the boxes are kind of even having been primed, they're still a little rough. The primer isn't really that smooth, and so you might go through brushes. But I still have brushes from the last time, so if you wash them really good, they'll be fine. But that's just an idea.
I put on artistsandcraftsman.com. It's a co-op, so it's owned by artists. They had a store in Berkeley, but they went under during the pandemic. That's where I had always gone, but they're online. So that's another resource.
Thank you. All right. Moving on down our list, we're going to talk about transferring the images onto the utility box. Now that you've submitted your work, how do you get it from what you submitted onto the box? And we're going to be talking about a grid transferring or tracing or drawing it onto the box. So
I'll start with grid. Yeah. The boxes are all 56 inches tall by 44 inches wide. So this is, because I think in the past, they've all been different. All the boxes have been a different size, but these are all the same size. So what I am recommending for a grid is like an 8-inch, it's not going to be a square, but it'll be 8-inch by 7 5/16 like size across. Like you'll have 8. This is kind of, it's visually, it's easier to see than it is to explain it. But you'll have 7 8-inch across, and then 6, or I'm sorry, 7 down 8-inch, and then across would be 7 5/16. So it's not quite a square. It would be 8 inches by 7 5/16 would fill the 56 by 44 inch. So once you have that on your on the box, whatever size canvas you have, you just need the same amount of squares or grid on the canvas, so it would transfer. So for instance, I have a 18 by 24 inch canvas that I've painted my painting on, and so I would have on that one 7 3 1/4 inches by 6 3 inches, and that would be the same dimension to transfer. I don't know, does anyone follow me on this? Has anyone done a grid before? The problem was we don't have equal, the boxes aren't like
Regular.
they don't divide equally into from the canvas. So
My question is, are these is it a cube?
it's, I don't know
Sides are
how else
narrower.
it's not a square. It'll be like the actual, like, what's the cube? No, it's not a cube. I wouldn't call it a cube.
Sides, there's the front and back are these dimensions. What are the dimensions of the sides?
Yeah.
The
Those are,
sides are 56 tall by 28 inches wide.
Thank you.
I think I was just gonna make a suggestion, and if you cut all the numbers in by 4, you get an even number of squares. So 56 divided by 4 is 14.
Yeah,
44
depending, right,
by 4 is 11.
right,
Paint something that's 14 by 11.
right.
14,
You can do that too. Yeah.
1 through 14, and then ABC across by
Right,
11. You've got
exactly.
your front and your back.
Yeah,
That works, yeah, that works really
Yeah.
well for the front and back. Uh-huh.
yeah,
22 divided by 4.
28, yeah, 7, yeah.
Right, is 7. So you got 7 by 14, which is exactly half wide
Mhm,
as it is down. You can do the same thing.
mhm.
And then,
Good,
and then when you go to do it, you've got 1-inch squares. And so when you go to paint it, each
Mhm.
square is now 4 inches
right,
instead of 1 inch. And it's easier
Right.
to transfer that way because you have,
right. No, that's a good explanation. I was just going with larger, the 8-inch on which is fine. I mean, it's just a recommendation, so that's good. Thank you. Yeah. That explains it.
Okay, so
think in
that's-
fractions. It's just my
that's-
brain.
Mm-hmm.
sorry. Oh, okay, that's one way to get your image onto the utility box. Another way to get your image on is to like transfer it. So I'm gonna have Thea discuss that a little bit.
Right. This is the method that Renaye and I used for ours. We had a lot of detail in our picture. So what we did was we got newspaper, plain newspaper print, and we taped it together of the actual size of the box. So we noted the size, the actual size. So, and then we grid our picture, and then we did the grid on our transfer paper. So when we went out to the site, then we drew it on the tracing paper, our plain newspaper print. So we actually had what it looked like when we went out inside. So we brought our tracing paper of that actual size of, the big sides and the small sides are going to be 2 different size. Then we charcoaled the back with a charcoal pencil or just plain charcoal. And then we taped it on the box. And then we redrew our designs on the paper. It took both of us because it was a little tricky to tape it on and make sure it fit. And that way we, when we were actually on site, we had to adjust it. We had to pull it up a bit or put it down. We could adjust our design because what we have on canvas is not necessarily what works on the box. You may have to bring it up, over and everything. There's some adjustments that, not too much, but just little ones for your perspective. And then we traced it and then we pulled it off and the charcoal seemed to fit. And then we just did a quick paint over the charcoal and it seemed to fix right away. And then we just brushed off the charcoal and it wasn't a problem with that. We did it after we did the base coat on the background. So we did the background paint first and then we put our tracing on. So enlarging it on the newspaper print helped us for our detailed work to do that. So we still have to do the grid work on our painting to do on that tracing. So that was a different method of doing that process of getting our design onto the box. And sometimes sometimes we had to stop and freehand it just to make it fit because you get out there and you're like, oh, that doesn't look right. So we did adjustments on the way too. That sometimes your design's lower and you want to bring it up more so it doesn't look like it's sitting on the bottom. And so we did that. Did I explain that pretty good?
You did. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I would suggest buying charcoal. It's really soft and it goes on pretty easy and it comes off pretty easy. So like once you get something up, and then if you want to just kind of take like a gray paint and make sure you've got it sketched on a little more permanently, then it'll all wipe off and then you can just go ahead with all your color and make it beautiful.
Right.
All right.
I was gonna say on the grid too, when you're making your squares or whatever you want to call them, your shapes, the nice soft white sort of chalk works for
Okay.
Yes.
because that kind of wipes off, paints over too
Right.
with the grid.
Do we have the size of the boxes? I just looked at
Yeah,
56 by 28.
44.
And then what was the small size?
56 by 44 is the
44?
the big side, like the front and back, and then the sides are 56 by 28.
Okay.
Can someone address I've seen this question a couple times about how true the box has to be to your design that you submitted. That's I think that can.
I think Catherine has the answer to that.
Yeah.
We've asked the city to loosen up their verbiage on the agreement around that. On the first project, it was like, it has to be exactly like the drawing. And part of that was because half of the boxes were being printed on vinyl and the other half were painted. And what we explained to the city and what we put on our notes that were handed off to the city attorney is that we need some space on that because we recognize there will be a need at some point to adjust the composition in certain cases. One of the messages we've been getting is that some of the designs need to be simplified somewhat. And there also may be a need to adjust the values. One of the things you'll remember from the call for artists is we don't want large dark areas because that can affect the electronics inside the box. So if you're using a lot of areas that are, say a dark red or something, it may be that you need to sort of, loosen up the value and make it a little lighter. So we're hoping the agreement comes back from the city attorney with the recognition that we need to allow for some artistic adjustments on site. Also, 3 of the boxes are going to have battery attachments at some point, and we don't yet know when those battery packs are arriving. And we'll be talking to those artists individually, but there's going to have to be some adjustments made there too. So that's just the reality. We don't want you to feel like you have to paint exactly every stroke the way you did in your submission. But overall, no changes in content or things like that. Does that answer your question, Susan?
Perfectly, exactly what I was hoping for.
And we see the artist agreement. We'll see if we made it, we got it our way.
Okay.
But we're
Yeah.
gonna fight. We'll-
Don't
we're
want to
gonna
change
fight.
the content, but might have to adjust a few little things if it just
Correct.
doesn't fit.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. And if they, don't agree with our point of view, we'll fight for you. So,
So I think I'm moving on to the next one about supplies to bring to the site. So on your paint supplies, kind of bring all your paints. We recommend rags, a spray bottle. If it's a very warm day, we found that putting a little spray on the water just to keep the paints moisture was good. We used paper plates as our areas to mix in. It was easy to clean up. Some other people, however you feel comfortable to use. Paper towels, bring a roll. You're going to use them for cleanup. We also found jars to put our brushes in with water in to clean them out. Sometimes old plastic jars to keep clean water and dirty water. So you have 2 jars and you'll have to bring your own water because we won't have water on the site. Is helpful to use. On the paper plates, we used the ones with the coating on it. That helped. It didn't absorb the paint. So what was that called, Renee? The paper
Yeah,
plate?
I think it was just like a white coated paint.
Right. So not
the-
just the regular paper plates, but it has a coat on it. So it
Yeah.
helps hold it. Chairs. They do have chairs, but we have found like little step stools are helpful. You may be getting down on the ground. So we've used knee pads and pillows to set on. You'll need to use your yoga exercises for sometimes that you're going to be in interesting positions. So those are helpful. Hats, if it's a warm day. Also bring your own water and coffee and snacks, things for you, and lunch, because we're not around areas where we can run off and get to a snack. So kind of depending on how long you're going to paint, bring food for you because you'll need breaks. You'll need time to get up and stretch and stand back. So it's useful to take that. We've talked about brushes, no sunscreen if it's really warm that you might need. I'm trying to think. Rags. We use paper towels and rags. Oh, and garbage bags. At the end of the day, you'd be surprised how many things needs in a garbage bags. It helps keep your area clean.
Drop cloths.
Drop cloths. We're hoping to get some drop cloths, towels. Yes. If I'm forgetting anything, Renee or Janice.
I think what's nice when the parking isn't too far, but you're still gonna have to lug all this. So it's nice if you have a wagon to put everything in.
Mhm.
If anyone doesn't, if anyone has one, I would definitely, use that. It makes it a lot easier.
Right.
Cart all this stuff.
I don't think we had a wagon, but we had stuff in boxes that was easy to kind of carry.
Mhm.
But a wagon, if you can get it all in
Right.
one trip, is really nice.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bring more than what you think because you'll probably use it.
Yeah, if you have like some old, like those roller luggage things, like
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah. Or an old wagon to bring along. Yeah.
or an old wagon. For the water, I would say get if you have a wagon or something that you can put it on and roll it, so you don't have to carry it, of course. But I would get one of those big water dispensers with the little thing on it.
Oh, that's a good
It
idea.
comes like a little sink.
Mhm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
what Melissa and I used
Right.
when we were out by the park
Mhm.
station. And
There
that
was a question about
really,
leaving
really
our
helpful.
supplies. We will not be leaving our supplies. So every day that you're finished painting, you will need to pack up your supplies and put them in your car. It will not be secure to leave all your supplies out. So
But
that is always something.
If someone's just going to lunch, I think the question was, you
Oh.
can kind of watch their stuff. I think
Oh,
we
yeah.
did that with each other last time.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, but overnight, yeah. you're
not
right.
overnight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're on to our next time to complete the work or time. Renee, that was you.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so when we get out there and we have our schedule ready to go, things to remember are just, like how much time is this going to take? And there's, you have to allow a little bit of time for setting up, a little bit of time for cleaning up, and we all know that because we've probably done it before, just even at home. But anyway, so that's just like a little bit of added time. If you kind of think about maybe like after the first day when you get out there and you see how much work it is and how much time you were able to do that day. Some of us have endurance limitations, I'll say. So Thea and I found out when we were working, usually like 8 to 12, 12:30 was about the time that we were able to put in before our productivity started taking a hit. So but sometimes maybe people have a little more endurance and they can take a lunch break and come back. But for us, that kind of worked, just to kind of put some time in, go away, come back the next day, refreshed. So think about like the first day getting hopefully a primer or your base coat on, whatever colors you want. That's going to take a little bit of time to dry. If you can stick around and wait to transfer your work, that's good. But think about that. You're going to be transferring your work onto the box. I would not just leave it in a charcoal way. Make sure you get a little bit of an image on with some gray paint, white paint, something, because we're going to be leaving at night, and you don't want to come back the next day and have somebody have wiped it all off. And then painting itself, once you start painting, you'll get kind of a handle on how much you can get done in a certain time frame in a day. So we'll be having a schedule come out as soon as we find out when the boxes are here. And we'll have people sign up. Hopefully somebody who's done the boxes before will be available for questions or be on site when everybody is painting. So and we'll try to work this all out just to make sure that happens. But there's nothing that says you can't come back in the afternoon. From what I understand, I think the city is going to try to have like tents out there. Catherine can correct me if I'm wrong. They're going to try to have tents out for us and maybe leave them up so that we can kind of come and go as we like, but I would not leave any supplies there. The public is in and out and around. I know the library is kind of a popular place for our homeless population to kind of use restrooms, and it's like a nice sheltered area. So go ahead, Catherine.
Well, I want to clarify, the latest word on tents, tables, and chairs is that Parks and Rec will only be putting them up if you're going to be there.
Okay.
So we will have a sign-up sheet, and we will ask you to try to predict what days you'll be there every week. Okay. Right now, we're expecting a minimum of a 2-week painting period. It may be longer, and I suspect it will, but the city is not going to be leaving the tents and things up. They'll do like they did last phase. They'll put them up and take them down every day. So
Right.
we'll have a tent, you'll have a table and at least 2 chairs. You can let me know if you need more chairs than that. But we will have a schedule. We'll ask you to follow that. And the city does have a little different working hours. They generally have to be done taking down everything by 4:30, so they don't go into overtime, but they have committed to working on the weekend. So they will be doing that because they already know that a lot of our painters are employed during the week. And so they will accommodate us, but it just will be important from your standpoint to make sure we have accurate information because it's not a random thing about the tents going up. It has to be scheduled, so. And we'll set that up for you.
Right.
Can I talk about the restroom too? Because there's gonna be
Yeah,
a
yeah,
restroom key. For anybody who, is worried about the restrooms, you won't be using the one at the library. You'll be using a restroom, I think, in City Hall. So there will be, and we'll have either a key code or I think it's a card or something. So somebody's gonna have to be on site with that, but
Okay,
you'll have access.
that sounds great.
Mhm.
So also like in your time frame, and when you're working, we have our friendly public that kind of comes and goes and stops and chats and everything. So that kind of breaks you away from your work sometimes. I think there's going to be enough of us to kind of take turns and kind of watch out. Like Thea and I, like if one of us was like really into painting, the other one would step up and say something. That's why it's kind of good to have like a little team there with you. But it sounds like there's going to be quite a few of us, hopefully, all painting at the same time, so we can kind of share the wealth, so as to speak, of I'll say the friendly public. On occasion, they're not that friendly. And so we'll try to run interference with that also.
And there will be volunteers there from time to time. We don't yet know
Okay.
how many hours a day, but as we did with phase 1, we had a table set up for CAA. We had volunteers there and we tried to attract their attention to, engage with us rather than with the painters as much as possible. But we can't guarantee we'll have somebody every day. We're going to do our best to have some representation for you.
Okay, I think that's about all I have to say. I know sometimes people want to kind of break this down into hours, and we tried to keep track of hours a little bit. Thea and I did when we were painting, and I think we came up with, like, was it 20 hours for each of us, Thea?
Yeah.
Something roughly that. Yeah.
Yeah, 20 to
So-
30 hours, yeah.
And I don't know, I don't know if Jennifer and Janice and Karen, Lori,
we
did
had-
you?
We
similar,
didn't track our
wasn't it,
time,
Thea?
unfortunately. That
Didn't
would have been a really good idea, actually, but we didn't.
You didn't?
Yeah,
Okay.
neither did we. I don't think it was 30 hours though.
Okay.
That we spent. Our design was pretty simple.
What do you think, Karen? You think we did about 30 hours?
You know what?
total?
I honestly
Yeah.
don't know. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, between 24 and 30 hours, I think, maybe less. Yeah.
And another thing to think about, like the painting time is going to take up the most of the time, but just to keep in your mind that you are going to have to do an isolation coat, let that dry. I think it's 12 to 24 hours
It's 24
before
hours, yeah.
24.
before you put the varnish on. So you want your work done, checked off by the city, then be able to put the isolation coat on. Hopefully your painting is all dry. Maybe make sure that's an overnight thing too. And then the isolation coat, and then the varnish. And for varnish, we're going to be ordering isolation coat and varnish through CAA. So we'll have that available for you but you're going to be responsible to put it on your work.
Is the varnish a water soluble or is it an oil?
It's a solvent soluble. Yeah. So that's the tricky part. You know, we order the varnish
Mm-hmm.
and then there's solvent that needs to be added to it. And I think it's a 3-part to 1 part, something like that. 3-part to 1 part. So we're gonna order like cans of varnish. I think it's like a 4-ounce can, because honestly, we decided, Thea and I decided, and I don't know if everybody else did, that varnish is less is more.
Right.
Because if you start really globbing it on, it gets globs and it gets streaks and it starts
wow.
looking pretty.
So
Right.
just one coat on both. And-
One coat.
Yeah, just
on-
one coat, because we
Mhm.
found that if
Yeah,
you did a second coat, it would start running. So just one good coat, because they're gonna do another coat.
they're
over.
gonna
The
put an
city's gonna do it.
isolation coat, or they're gonna put a an anti-graffiti coat on top of our varnish too.
Right.
So yeah, we'll
You
all
don't have
try
to do a real thick one. It's a nice thin one.
Yeah.
It's just perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, and any questions at all? We're at a round table now. Anybody got like some concerns, or did we scare the heck out of everybody, or you know? There's a bunch of us here who actually survived it.